What happens when a cop with a power trip meets a woman who outranks him in every way that matters? It started on a Wednesday night late, just after 11 p.m. The kind of time when the streets of Toledo, Ohio are mostly empty, only a few workers heading home, or someone like Lieutenant Colonel Adrian Wallace driving through town. She had just finished a base meeting 2 hours south. Adrian was in her government-issued black SUV. The windows were slightly tinted, nothing fancy, just clean, simple and quiet. Like her, she had been driving for a while, humming softly to the sound of the tires on the road. Her mind was already on getting home. She wasn't speeding, wasn't swerving, wasn't doing anything wrong, but Sergeant Daniel Mercer saw things differently. He was parked near Reynolds Road sipping lukewarm coffee and scrolling through his phone, bored. His shift had been slow, no calls, no action. Then an unfamiliar car passed by. He tossed the cup aside and turned on his lights before Adrian could react. The cruiser was behind her. She slowed down and pulled over, calm and controlled, just like her training. The patrol car door slammed shut. In her mirror, she saw a tall man walking toward her. His hand rested on his holster, a flashlight in the other. He didn't go to the passenger side, he went straight to her window. License and registration. He said no greeting. Adrian kept her hands where he could see them. She rolled the window halfway down. Officer, can I ask why I was stopped? Mercer shined the light in her face. You were drifting between lanes, didn't signal, looked like you might have been drinking. She raised an eyebrow. I wasn't. License and registration, he repeated louder. Adrian didn't argue. She moved slowly, pulling her documents from the glove box. As she handed them over, she added, "This is a government vehicle. I'm a federal employee." Mercer glanced at her ID. Military, yes. He smirked. Doesn't mean you're above the law. I never said I was. His voice turned sharper. Step out of the vehicle. Adrian blinked. Excuse me, I said. Step out of the car. I'm doing a sobriety test. Her jaw tightened, but she stayed calm. On what grounds? I've cooperated. I haven't been drinking. I'd like to know the reason. Mercer moved closer. Now you're refusing a lawful order. Adrian didn't flinch. Number, I'm asking for an explanation. He didn't like that. He yanked her door open himself. Get out of the car now. That's when she quietly turned on her phone camera and hit record. Just so we're clear, she said, this conversation is being recorded. Mercer's eyes flicked to the phone for the first time. Hesitation flashed across his face, but he didn't back down. Out now. Adrian stepped out, standing tall, not aggressive, but firm. She didn't yell or resist, but her confidence was obvious, even in civilian clothes. Mercer studied her for the first time. A small voice in his head whispered, "What am I dealing with here?" But his pride was louder. He made her walk a straight line under the streetlights like she was some drunk driver on a weekend night. She passed perfectly, no slurred words, no stumbling, no hesitation. Still, he wrote her a ticket. Failure to stay in your lane. Adrian took the paper without a word, just a look. Then she got back in her car and drove away, but Mercer had no idea the ticket would end up in court and change everything. Sergeant Daniel Mercer sighed. Mercer wasn't new to the job. 15 years on the force had hardened him. He'd handled everything: street fights, car crashes, and earned a reputation, the kind that made rookies stiffen when he walked in, and he liked it that way. He didn't ask questions, he gave orders to him. The badge meant control. Final say. It didn't matter if it was a smart-mouthed teen or a driver asking too many questions. Mercer never backed down, and he never apologized. His precinct knew what he was: a cop who did his paperwork, showed up on time, and never hesitated. But they also knew he had a sharp tongue and a quick temper. Nobody challenged him until that night back at the station. He barely mentioned the stop. He logged the ticket: failure to maintain lane, possible impairment, no arrest, and tossed his body cam into the charger. Like always, the footage sat untouched for 2 days. Meanwhile, Mercer joked about it in the break room. Some woman tried to pull rank on me, he told Officer Diaz. Flashed her government ID like it was supposed to scare me. Diaz frowned. Wait, she was military. Mercer shrugged, said her name was Wallace. Adrian Wallace. Diaz's face changed. Lieutenant Colonel Wallace. She spoke at the academy last year. She's not just military, she's high up, runs logistics at Fort Wayne, Bronze Star 2 deployment. She's real. Mercer waved it off. Don't care who she is on the road, I'm the law. But something in Diaz's tone stuck with him, that tiny hint of respect. Still, Mercer didn't check the footage, didn't think twice about the ticket. In his mind, it was over. But it wasn't Adrian's move. Adrian wasn't the type to make noise over nothing. She wasn't dramatic, she wasn't confrontational. And after 22 years in uniform, 2 tours overseas, and countless close calls, she didn't have time for petty fights. But this was different. Because she wasn't just thinking about herself, she was thinking about every young soldier she'd mentored, every civilian she'd seen mistreated, every woman, especially every black woman forced to stay quiet just to avoid trouble. And she wasn't staying quiet. The next morning she sat in her office at Fort Wayne staring at her screen. She hadn't slept much, not from anger, though she was angry, but from replaying the stop in her head, the way he spoke to her, the way his hand hovered near his gun, the way he tried to provoke her. She knew how bad it could have been if she'd lost her cool. Her aide, Sergeant Daniels, knocked. "You good, ma'am?" Adrian looked up. "Number. But I'm handling it." He stepped in, closing the door. "I saw the video. You want me to call the base lawyer?" "Already done," she said. Daniels hesitated. "You sure you want to take this public?" Adrian leaned back. "I'm not looking for drama, I'm looking for accountability." And she meant it. She'd spent her Career leading with discipline and integrity. Her rank wasn't just a title, she'd earned it. She'd commanded convoys in war zones, organized disaster relief, managed soldiers and supplies across 4 continents, but none of that mattered to Mercer. To him, she was just another driver who didn't obey fast enough, and that's what bothered her most, how easy it was for him. So she made calls to military lawyers, to the inspector general. She attached the video, filed a complaint, and let the facts speak for themselves. By the end of the week, Mercer's name was tied to an investigation. The department's lawyers were notified, and Adrian, she kept working, stayed quiet, but behind the scenes she was ready, because her lawyer had said the stop wasn't just rude, it might have broken federal rules, and if needed they'd go to court. Adrian didn't hesitate, she was ready. The reckoning. Mercer still thought this would blow over, until the envelope arrived, plain thin, just a manila folder with his name typed on the front. He ripped it open in the parking lot, expecting another memo. But it wasn't. It was a court summons. A civil rights complaint had been filed. Plaintiff, Lieutenant Colonel Adrian Wallace. Charges: unlawful detainment, intimidation, abuse of power. Mercer stood there for a moment staring at the paper, then he walked away. He laughed loudly. "No way," he muttered. "No way this holds." But when he went back into the station, the air had changed. His boss, Officer Reading, called him into the office. The door closed, the blinds were drawn down. Reading began. "We need to talk." Mercer sat with his arms folded. "About what? The woman from the other night. She's acting like the victim." Reading wasn't smiling. "She's not pretending. Do you even know who she is?" "I don't care who she is. She got stopped, acted rude, and now she's upset. I didn't treat her like royalty." Reading leaned in. "She's not just anyone. She's a high-ranking officer, a war veteran. Her record is perfect. She has powerful friends, and she has the whole thing recorded from her view and yours." Mercer shrugged. "So what? We just give up and apologize because she has rank number, but we can't act like this is nothing. You're going to court, and if this gets out, which it will, it'll explode." Still Mercer stayed stubborn. "She wasn't even arrested. I didn't lay a hand on her. I followed the rules." "You were tense, Dan. You made things worse. You treated her like a criminal before you knew who she was." Mercer pressed his lips together. For once he had no quick comeback. The notice said the court date was in 3 weeks. By then rumors had spread through the department. Quiet talks in the locker room, strange looks in the halls. No one said anything to his face, but Mercer could sense the change. He wasn't the tough guy anymore. He was weak now, and the others could tell. Back at her base, Adrian got ready too, but differently. She didn't shout to the news or beg for sympathy. She met with her lawyers in private. They watched the footage again and again. She wrote down every detail of what happened. She was calm, collected, but determined. Her lawyer, Delaney Price, sat across from her and said, "Are you sure you want to take this to court? It's public, it'll stay with you." Adrian nodded. "Good, let it." Price paused. "Most people would have dropped it." "I've ignored too much already," Adrian said. "This isn't just about me." She wasn't after money. She wanted proof, something official that showed power didn't mean you could act however you wanted. Silence wasn't the only choice. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for everyone who had ever been disrespected, ignored, or pushed around by someone hiding behind authority. When the court date arrived, she didn't slip in quietly. She walked in wearing her full military uniform, badges, medals, her rank clear for all to see. She wanted the jury to see her not just as a woman in a car that night, but as someone who had served her country, followed the rules, and expected fairness in return. Mercer was already sitting when she entered. He turned, saw the uniform, and for the first time his smug look wavered. But the real challenge hadn't begun yet. The courtroom was full, not with reporters, not yet, but with officers from both the local police station and Fort Wayne military base. Adrian's fellow soldiers sat quietly, dressed in uniform or formal clothes, side by side with regular people who didn't fully understand the case. To some this looked like a simple traffic stop turned bad. To Adrian, it was the breaking point of something bigger, something that had been building for years. Mercer sat stiffly at the defense table, his face unreadable but tense. His lawyer, Charles Breener, whispered something to him. Mercer didn't react. He just kept his eyes on the judge. Then Adrian was called. She stood, straightened her collar, and walked to the witness stand with the same steady confidence she'd used leading troops through danger. She didn't hurry, she didn't hesitate. Every person in the room watched her. Her medals gleamed, her posture commanded respect, not because of her uniform, but because of what she'd earned. The judge cleared his throat. "Colonel Wallace, thank you for your service. You may begin." Delaney Price stepped forward, ready. "Lieutenant Colonel, could you describe the night of January 17th? Adrian spoke clearly. "I was driving back from a meeting at the Indiana Guard Reserve around 11:15 p.m. when Officer Mercer stopped me. I wasn't swerving, I wasn't drunk. I cooperated and asked normal questions, but he answered with anger." Her voice stayed calm. "Just facts, no emotion. He told me to get out of the car without explaining why. When I asked, he just repeated it louder. That's when I started recording." Delaney nodded. "Did you ever refuse a direct order?" "No." "Did you resist?" "No." "Did you tell him Who you were? Yes, I said I work for the government and was driving an official vehicle. The room was completely silent, no whispers, no movement, just the sound of pens writing. Then they played the videos, first Adrian's phone recording clear and damaging, then Mercer's body camera footage showing his harsh tone, his threatening stance, his hand near his gun. Even though she was cooperating, the jury didn't need to talk, you could feel their opinion changing. Next came Mercer's lawyer, Breener, trying to sound polite but push hard. Lieutenant Colonel Wallace, isn't it possible? Officer, Mercer was just doing his job. Adrian didn't hesitate. No, couldn't he have been worried about safety? I was driving fine, I was sober, I wasn't threatening anyone, there was no danger. And yet you recorded the stop. Why? Because experience taught me that staying quiet doesn't keep you safe. I wanted proof of what happened. Breener nodded slowly. So you don't think officers should use their own judgment during stops? Adrian looked straight at him. I think judgment must come with self-control. That badge isn't a license to do whatever you want, it's a duty. Even the judge paused at that. Then it was Mercer's turn. He didn't testify, just watched as they played the videos again, second by second, every harsh word, every glare, every time he treated her like she didn't matter. The prosecutor asked, Sergeant Mercer, why did you order her out of the car? Mercer tensed. She seemed suspicious. Did she disobey you? She questioned me. Is that against the law? Mercer paused. No. Did she yell, threaten you? No. Then why escalate? No answer. Sergeant Mercer, did you know she was a lieutenant colonel? Not then. And if you had? Mercer's voice dropped. I might have handled it differently. The room went still. There, it was not quite an apology, but the truth slipping out. That night Mercer didn't see a person, he saw someone who didn't obey fast enough, didn't act the way he wanted. Now with her rank visible and the whole court watching, everyone understood. But the trial wasn't over. The jury still had to decide what punishment was fair. 3 days later they gave their decision. The courthouse was quieter now. No uniforms, no extra officers, just Adrian, her lawyer, and a few curious observers. Mercer sat with his attorney, trying to keep his face blank, but his jaw clenched slightly. Judge Cynthia Morales looked over the room. In the case of Wallace versus Mercer, the jury finds in favor of the plaintiff. Mercer shifted. Adrian didn't move. The court rules that Sergeant Mercer violated constitutional rights during an unlawful stop. His actions did not follow department rules or basic professional standards. No one cheered, no one gasped, just the heavy silence of justice being served. Mercer's lawyer moved closer and muttered, "We'll appeal." But even he seemed unsure. The judge went on, "No criminal charges will be filed now, but the victim is owed $35,000 in compensation. This ruling will stay in the public record forever. Also, it will be sent to the Department of Justice and the Toledo Police Department for review and policy changes." Adrian didn't smile, cheer, or show excitement. She just gave a single nod, not to the judge or the jury, but to herself. She had done what she set out to do. After the trial, Mercer stood outside the courthouse, walking back and forth near the steps. A few local news reporters had arrived, not a huge crowd, but enough for him to lower his head and hide his face behind a folder. As cameras flashed, he stayed silent, made no comment, and just left in his car. Inside, Adrian paused in the hallway, checked her phone and saw the message, "You won, case closed." Her lawyer caught up to her. "You could have demanded more money." Adrian shook her head. "It wasn't about the cash." Delaney studied her. "Do you think this will make a difference?" Adrian looked at the glass doors and replied, "I'm not sure, but maybe next time he stops someone he'll hesitate." A week later, Mercer was suspended while the police reviewed the case. Some whispered he might be moved to a different job. Others said his career was over. Either way, the protection he once had was broken, and everyone could see it. At Fort Wayne, Adrian went back to her job as if nothing had happened. She didn't want to be seen as a hero or give interviews. She had tasks to finish, people to train, missions to run, and duties to fulfill. But within her team, the lesson was clear: you don't always have to shout to earn respect. You don't always have to fall apart to prove you were hurt. Sometimes staying calm says more than anger ever could. Even with the court's decision in her favor, Adrian knew the battle wasn't over, because holding someone responsible isn't just about punishment, it's about what happens after. 2 months later, Adrian stood before a room of new recruits at Fort Wayne. Most had only worn the uniform for a few weeks, young, eager, ready to serve. She wasn't there to discuss battle plans or supplies. This time she spoke about leadership, what it means when no one is watching. She scanned the room and asked, "How many of you believe a uniform automatically makes people respect you?" A few hands rose, some unsure, some certain. She nodded. "I get why you'd think that, but here's the reality. Respect isn't given, it's earned with every action, every choice." She let the words sink in. The same goes for power. She continued, "The badge, the rank, the authority, it's not armor, it's a burden. If you can't handle it with honor, you don't deserve it." In the back, a young soldier sat straighter, listening closely. Adrian paused, then added, "When an officer stopped me and forgot his duty, I could have screamed, I could have frozen, I could have ignored it." She met their eyes. "I didn't. I recorded it, I reported it, I went to court and told the truth." A long silence followed. That officer thought his badge made him invincible until he saw my rank, not just on my uniform, but in how I stood my ground. That's the difference. That's real leadership. The room stayed silent, not from boredom, but from understanding. Adrian shut her folder and looked up. "Lead with honesty, serve with honor." And remember, you don't just wear the uniform, you represent everyone who ever wore it and everyone who ever will. She stepped down not for praise, not for thanks, but because her point was made. Let this be a lesson: power without responsibility is just a disguise for fear. Speak up, hold firm when you see injustice, don't look away, because silence helps the wrongdoers but courage defends everyone. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.